Are you thinking about coming to Sri Lanka? Well, you're in the right spot because we just spent over 30 days driving a tuk-tuk throughout this incredible island, and in this video we're gonna share everything you need to know to have the best trip ever. Welcome to the Pearl of the Indian Ocean.
When traveling to Sri Lanka, you will most likely arrive here to the country's main international airport just outside the city of Columbo. And most tourists visiting Sri Lanka do need a visa to enter. Luckily, it is very easy to get an e-visa. We applied online and it took literally 1 hour for us to get approved. It just costs $50 per person. And also note that there's no physical visa. You just get an online confirmation and somehow it gets fed into the customs system here at Sri Lanka. And also keep in mind that technically there's some other requirements to entry, so you do need proof of onward travel, and you also need proof of sufficient funds to be traveling here in Sri Lanka. They didn't ask for any of that, but technically it is a requirement, so just keep that in mind. And also, one more thing to note, if you're a Venezuelan or a South American passport holder, you technically also need to have a yellow fever vaccination card. Again, they didn't ask it, but it is a requirement, and we'll put all that info in the description. The first thing we're going to talk about is what type of plugs they use in Sri Lanka. So as a former British colony, they use the same exact outlets or plug types as they do in the UK. So that's not the same as in North America or in Western Europe. We have this very handy international adapter thingy with all the different types, and it's been a lifesaver on our travels.
It's amazing. We love it so much, and we're going to link it in the description.
Yeah, so the high season for tourists in Sri Lanka is between December and April, and that also coincides with the dry season for the southwestern part of Sri Lanka, which is the most touristy part. The more touristy part does get pretty busy, especially places like Ella, I guess Kandy, and also the beaches on the southwest.
So we were there in April, the entire month of April, and it rained maybe a third of the days, but it was never anything major that ruined our days. We did brave a couple storms in the tuk-tuk. Just waiting.
Got puddles by my feet. It's a pretty serious storm. April's a good month, but it can also get super hot, especially in the north towards Jaffna, so keep that in mind as well.
Yeah.
And also one thing to know, the east side of the island, which is more unexplored, I would say, has a different rainy season, different monsoon season. So if you do want to go to that area and you don't want to get rained on, then
all in all, like, it's a small island, but there are different climates. So please check in advance depending on the area that you're visiting. When it comes to drinking water, I don't know if you guys care about this stuff, but I feel this is the first thing that we ask our hosts, right? Every time that we arrive somewhere. And no, in Sri Lanka, you cannot drink tap water, but you can brush your teeth with sink water.
Yeah, and the main reason that it sucks that you can't drink the tap water is that we had to buy a ton of plastic bottles, like the big 5-liter bottles, and it's just kind of wasteful, I guess.
And annoying. It's an extra task.
So in terms of getting mobile data in Sri Lanka, we both have T-Mobile in the US, and they usually have some kind of partnership with like local carriers. So we have data through them, but it was pretty slow. So we did end up getting a SIM card from Dialog.
Dialog, 50 gigabytes, and it lasted the whole month, and we use it a ton, right?
We use it a ton. So we had Google Maps open every single day, and for the 50 gigs, we paid $7.70. So super affordable.
Yes.
We bought it at the airport, which is very easy, and we can recommend it, but they also have SIM card stands.
Everywhere. But we recommend that company, Dialog. It was really nice. When it comes to Wi-Fi, it was honestly pretty slow. So we were able to upload videos, but it took like 24 hours. That being said, you guys are probably not going to be uploading any videos, so for social media, it worked fine. It wasn't great for FaceTiming our families. In general, it was pretty slow, but it just depends on where you're staying as well, right?
Yeah, exactly. So like safari lodges, anything more remote is definitely slower, even slower.
Yeah.
But nothing's like super.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah. This question always comes up, and that's why we try to cover it in every single one of our travel guide videos, because there's nothing worse than being overcharged as a tourist. And the answer for Sri Lanka, it's a little bit complicated. We did hear a lot about other people being overcharged, but it didn't happen to us. Maybe once or twice, but nothing too crazy.
I'd say in general, it's not that common, but where it does definitely happen is when you negotiate a tuk-tuk, they'll try to take advantage of you which is why we recommend going through Uber and the local Uber, which is called Pick Me, where you can book tuk-tuk rides and then they have like a transparent price. But the flip side to that is that they will call you and try to negotiate because you're gonna pay in cash. So like the tuk-tuk drivers, they can't accept credit card usually. So you have to do the cash option and then they'll call you and try to get more money, like 80% of the time.
Yeah.
So that's one thing to keep in mind.
And another thing, you can also ask your guest house hosts, right? Because they know more or less what would be a fair price. So you can use that as a reference.
Yeah, exactly. And then one other thing to note is that we heard that Kandy is a city specifically where they do overcharge a little bit more, especially for the guides outside of the Sacred Tooth Temple. So just be aware of that. You don't need a guide to go in, so they'll try to tell you that you do need one, but
pay
it's not
the
true.
entrance fee.
And then the final point is that there's also foreigner and national pricing for a lot of the famous sites, so like national parks and also Sigiriya, the famous Lion's Rock. But it's all transparent and it is.
It's all displayed and it is what it is, and it's a practice that we obviously support.
Another thing that we wanted to talk about in this general tips section is about visa extensions. So we talked about visas earlier, that you can get 30 days with the online e-visa. You can also extend it online for an additional $50 and then you get either 30 or 60 days. However, doing it online comes with some complications.
Yes, we read it was a very complicated process and it doesn't always work. So we tried to do it. We were not able to because of my Venezuelan passport. Long story. But we heard from other people that they were also not able to do it because it's complicated. And if you don't extend it and you overstay your visa, you're gonna get fined like $500 when leaving the country. So please either extend your visa online or do it in Columbo, which is the only place in the country that you can do it. You can do it in person. We tried to do it in Kandy and we were not able to. So just keep that in mind. It's very important that you don't overstay your stay.
Yeah, we heard from people that overstayed by 1 day and got charged $500.
Yes, so please pay attention to it.
You have been warned.
Yes. And last but not least, for general tips, we're going to cover how to dress as a tourist, and we're going to talk a little bit about religion, how to dress. Okay, so if you're south, it's fine. If you're at the beach, like you can wear a bathing suit, you can pretty much wear whatever you want, except I think naked or topless. If you go to the center, Kandy, Ella, all that area, you can also wear whatever you want. However, if you go north, and I'm guessing east is the same case, but we don't know. But we went north, and that is the first time in our travels that I felt that I was being looked at in a really bad way for not covering my shoulders. So keep that in mind. You can't go to the beach in a bathing suit either. So just keep that in mind as a woman if you go north, especially.
Yeah, I'd say in general the country is pretty religious and skews a little bit more conservatively. Besides like the beaches and the touristy areas.
Yeah.
But definitely also if you're visiting religious places, then you definitely have to cover up.
Course.
So like Buddhist temples, Hindu temples, like mosques. There's mosques as well that you can visit.
Buy a sarong and wear it. That's what we did.
Pro tip.
Yes. Of course, safety is always a concern when traveling to a foreign country, and we're happy to report that Sri Lanka was really good to us and we felt safe the entire time that we were there.
Yeah, so some people might be hesitant about visiting Sri Lanka, especially if you follow the news, because they went through the crazy economic and social turmoil and there were like protests in the street. A lot of that has kind of passed, at least as it applies to foreigners. Obviously, like the country's still going through a lot for the locals, but for tourists, it's totally safe, like with that in consideration.
Yeah, we were in a tuk-tuk for 30 days and we never felt unsafe. We actually felt like part of it.
And also, if you're familiar with like the recent, more or less recent civil war that they had, all of that is more or less in the past as well. So even like going to the north where most of the conflict kind of like took place,
it's perfectly safe.
It's perfectly safe up there too. The only thing, we drove the tuk-tuk, the roads are a little bit crazy, but there's a flow to it. You know, the only thing that you have to watch out for is the buses. And if I had to say anything that's unsafe about Sri Lanka, it is those damn buses.
Okay, don't call us crazy, but we think the best way to move around Sri Lanka is by tuk-tuk. Technically, there are other ways. Obviously, you can ride the train, but they're very slow. There are buses, but they drive like crazy. You can obviously rent a car as well, but it somehow seems more terrifying than driving a tuk-tuk. And of course, you can rent a scooter, but you're going to be always exposed to the elements, the sun and the rain. So it didn't seem super comfortable the whole time we saw it. but we're gonna tell you why we think renting a tuk-tuk is such a great idea.
Yeah, so one of the main reasons that we love having a tuk-tuk is that you can just take your time to explore every corner of Sri Lanka. Like, you don't have to stick to the main tourist routes, you can just go to wherever you want to go. It's also actually a lot of fun to drive a tuk-tuk, like you're just in the middle of the Sri Lankan energy. It's really great. And also it's a great conversation starter. So you'll get tons of smiles and hellos, and everyone will want to talk to you because you're driving like their local transportation. So it's really cool.
It is the best and the locals love it. And also you're going to push yourself out of your comfort zone. You're going to learn something new, that it's a skill that you can maybe use in another country. It is for sure an adventure, but it's so worth it because at the end of it, you're going to come out as a better person and stronger, right?
Yeah, because you push yourself.
Yeah.
Learn something new.
It's been amazing.
And last but not least, the company that we rented this tuk-tuk from is absolutely awesome. So they rent tuk-tuks directly from local families. So by driving one of these three-wheelers all throughout Sri Lanka, you're also going to be supporting a local family directly. So it's a total win-win.
Yes, so we're going to put all their information in the description and more info about Sri Lanka and driving a tuk-tuk in a free PDF that you can download also in the description. Our first stop was Galle.
Galle, yeah. So first of all, getting to Galle was an adventure in itself. It was our first day with the tuk-tuk, and it was a 7-hour drive from the Columbo area all the way south to Galle.
Yeah.
But once we got there, after the hectic madness of our first day on the road, it was super relaxed.
Galle is beautiful. It's a gorgeous colonial city inside an old Dutch fort. There's a lot of shopping, beautiful beaches and viewpoints, nice restaurants, cocktails.
Yeah.
It's very small, but it's very beautiful.
It's probably the most comfortable city in all of Sri Lanka. Like, it's a very easy entry point.
Yes.
So it was nice. I like Galle a lot.
It was awesome. After Galle, we spent 5 amazing days bouncing around Sri Lanka's famous southern beaches, and it was also amazing. It was so beautiful.
The beaches are awesome. A lot of them are famous for surfing, so there's definitely a ton of surfing beaches, which is cool. We're not surfers, but it's cool to see surfers just like shredding in the waves.
Yeah.
We stayed in 2 different places. One was Ahangama, the other was Talala or Talala. Ahangama is on the west coast, so you have really epic sunsets. When you go to Talala, it's on the south coast, and it's a little bit like wilder and more remote. So I think most people will stay on the west coast, like places like Hirakateya too.
We went to 5 different beaches, and we made a video about it, comparing all of them and showing you the highlights and what you can expect from each of those beach towns. So we're not going to get into all of them in this video, but I'm just going to put it here or here so you guys can check out the beaches in Sri Lanka because they're beautiful.
So from the beaches, we then headed north to Udawalawa National Park, and that's where we went on our very first safari.
Yes, we saw so many elephants right at the beginning. Like, I cried when I saw the first one because I could have touched him. I didn't, but I could have. And it was so magical. We saw so many.
Yeah.
It's so beautiful.
Including
it
a
was
1-month-old baby elephant.
Oh my gosh. Okay, no, that was awesome. A great experience, and we chose to go to that park, Udawalawa, instead of the more famous one called Yala, because we read that it was less busy, and it was. I mean, we think it was. We had a great experience. Right?
Yeah, it was awesome.
And we stayed in a really cool accommodation too. And a monkey pee on Gordon's.
Oh, we had monkeys all over the roof of our accommodation. They were everywhere. So from Udawalawa, we said goodbye to the elephants and we headed towards a town called Badula, which is generally in the area of Ella. And the reason we picked Badula is because we heard Ella was a little bit touristy and we wanted to see something different. But in the end, we stayed in both Badula and Ella. And
it was fine. I mean, it was super touristy. It's not much of a town, honestly. Very busy, but it was fine. What you go there for is to enjoy nature and to go on hikes and see waterfalls. So I don't think it matters where you stay.
We liked being in Badula because our guest house was very nice and it was a little bit more off the beaten path. But at the same time, all the sites are closer to Ella. So we spent a ton of time in our tuk-tuk just like going back towards Ella to see the things. So if it was worth it, I don't know. Like, it was still great to stay in Badula.
Yeah, I think it was worth
Ella's
it.
fine.
Yeah, but Ella was fine too. It's not
like what you say. The town isn't anything really, and you can get really nice accommodations with really spectacular views. So it's a good place to stay.
It doesn't matter where you stay. Like, that whole area is spectacular. It's very beautiful. After Ella, we found our way to Kandy, and what most people do is you take that really famous train from Ella to Kandy. We didn't do it because we had a tuk-tuk and we kind of wanted to do the drive and see if it was better than the train in a way. Not that we can know that because we didn't do the train, but it was such a nice road trip. We took our time, so it took us 3 days and we made 2 stops. What were the towns?
The first one was Nuwara Elia, so that's even higher into like the tea country. So Ella is also part of the tea country, but like Nuwara Elia is even more, and the climate changes and it feels like you're a little bit in a different world.
Yeah.
Super green, again, just beautiful nature everywhere.
We had high tea in a really fancy hotel. It was
First
very
time
nice.
ever having high tea.
It was very nice. And then the second stop was
Decoya.
Decoya.
Yeah.
Very small town. Like you go to that area to see beautiful waterfalls. And we stayed in an awesome guest house with delicious food and the nicest hosts. So for us, it was worth it to do the road trip instead of the train, just because we stayed in awesome places and we saw the same views pretty much.
Yeah,
it was
exactly.
Very beautiful.
And also in Decoya is the famous Adam's Peak, which is the holy site for different religions. A very intense hike, but if you're up for it, then you can do Adam's Peak. And we also stopped by a place called Ambuluwawa Tower. So that's like that famous spiral tower just outside of Kandy. Oh my god. I couldn't make it all the way up to the top. It was a little bit too sketchy for me. I'm afraid of heights.
I did it and it was fine. Beautiful. The views are amazing. Yeah. Totally worth it. So we do recommend that. Do a road trip instead of
if you have a tuk-tuk
or a car. Yeah, just consider doing it because you'll get, I think, more out of the experience.
Yeah. So obviously our road trip ended in Kandy and we spent 3 nights there, and it was really a nice change of pace from the super chilled out road trip. Those towns had very few people, and Kandy had like an energy again.
A city vibe again, yeah.
It was pretty hectic. But Kandy is known as being a very sacred city, so the most important temple, the Temple of the Tooth, is in Kandy, and they have like a piece of tooth from
Buddha.
So
it was really cool to see. That temple is beautiful.
It is very nice to see. But also what we did there, we went to an Ayurvedic spa, and this was super cool. Like we tried to find something different to do in town, and it was just a very unique experience. We did the thing where they pour hot oil on your chakra, on your third eye, and we both felt like we were like levitating and transported to another dimension.
It was so amazing, and Gordon did something with like a clay pot in his lower back. It was awesome. Such a great experience. And that was also one of our favorite guest houses that we stayed at in our entire trip. Not only because the host was amazing, but like the guest house was beautiful. And every place that we stayed at, we're gonna link it in a PDF in the description as usual, so you guys can check it out and hopefully stay at some of these places because we had a great experience.
Another thing about Kandy is like the local market there is awesome. It's pretty crazy, just like total sensory madness.
And everyone's so nice, and it was such a great experience.
Kandy has a lot going on. Like if you get into it, it's a really cool
set. We liked it a lot. After Kandy, we went all the way north to a place called Jaffna, and this place is so far north that we had to sleep somewhere. It was a very long road trip. We slept on a gas station.
So the reason that people visit Jaffna is that it has an entirely different culture. So if the majority of Sri Lanka, the southern part, is Sinhalese, like Buddhist Sinhalese, the north part where Jaffna is Tamil, so more of a South Indian Hindu influence. And you definitely feel it. It does feel like a different world. Yeah.
It is.
Especially like driving in that first day, the roads were so hectic. Like there's cows on the road, like you imagine in India, bikes just flying at you from all places.
Everyone's looking at you. It was
like the tuk-tuk graduation, but yeah, also just like the vibe was different. Like the stairs were deeper.
One thing that comes with Jaffna is delicious, incredible, magical, the best Indian food we've had in our entire lives.
Yeah.
Like it's so good.
It is so good. Yeah, we went to the same restaurant twice, and it was probably the best meal that we had, maybe the best meal that we had in all of Sri Lanka.
Yes.
Really phenomenal stuff.
That's a bold statement, but it was so good.
Yeah. So after Jaffna, it was time to head to Columbo, to the capital, to put the finishing touches on our travel series, but not before another very epic drive.
On that drive, also something really great happened, is that I finally drove the tuk-tuk. So it was a very special moment for me because you just have to watch those videos because it was a struggle the whole time with me driving the tuk-tuk. That was the initial plan of the travel series, and then the first day I didn't do a good job driving it, and then I was terrified to try it, and then every time I tried to practice, something happened and I would give up. So that last drive, I set up a timer, and I ended up driving the tuk-tuk for 2 hours and overcame a lot of obstacles.
Yeah, it was cool.
Yeah, so check out those videos. It was a special travel series. But then we made it to Columbo. Let's go back to the point.
And Columbo is cool. It's a big city, so there's a lot to see in terms of like restaurants and I don't know, like maybe bars and that kind of stuff.
Our guest house was amazing, and they had a dog. And shout out to Max and
my man.
And awesome guest house as well. But we didn't have enough time there, so we only had 2 full days. I was sick one of the days. I had a cold and I couldn't get out of bed. And then the second day it was very rushed. Yeah. But there was a special holiday.
Yeah, there was Buddha's his birthday.
His birthday, yes.
Nirvana Day and Death Day.
It was, it's a very important holiday, and so all the temples were decorated and people were out and about, and there was stuff happening everywhere. They were giving away drinks, and it was a really fun way to say goodbye. But I don't want to say that we didn't connect with Colombo, it's just that we didn't see enough of it, because we usually do love capital cities, so Colombo is definitely...
It seems like a city with a lot of like different layers where you need a local to take you around. Like the sites aren't like, again, oh my god, this is the coolest thing ever. But if you kind of know your way around and can get into it, it seems like it would be pretty interesting.
So Colombo is a city that we have to go back to. Let's talk about food.
So Sri Lankan food is incredible. It might be my favorite cuisine of all the places that we've visited. The first thing to note about Sri Lankan food is that it comes in massive, massive portions. Like you will eat your brains out.
So happy.
And then, of course, there are a lot of like curries. So it is similar in ways to Indian food, to the casual observer, but it's also very different. So they use a lot of coconut. So coconut sambal is like a different like garnish.
Coconut sambal is the best ever.
Condiments of sorts.
It's so good.
Yeah, and the curries are often coconut based. So curries are very popular, where you order like a type of protein and you get all these different mixed curries that you just throw in to the rice.
It's also mostly vegetarian, so it's you can find animal protein for sure, but the best meals are going to be vegetarian. For sure.
And if you're used to eating more like proteins, like a lot of Americans are, then you're going to be a little bit disappointed by the quantities.
He eats a lot of chicken, as you probably know by now.
So if you order like a chicken curry, then the piece of chicken will be
1 piece. I had to order chicken curries and give him 1 piece.
Okay, so but anyway, like the other very popular thing in Sri Lanka is called lump rice, which is basically like curries and different ingredients mixed in a coconut rice and steamed in a banana leaf. Also super flavorful.
It's so good. It's just like all the flavors are amazing. It's very spicy. You can ask for your food not to be spicy in some places because it's usually made fresh, but it's spicy. But it's so good. It's so good.
And just a quick add-on here, this is kind of related to food, but we wanted to talk about tipping, which is most relevant to restaurants. So tipping is common in Sri Lanka. Mostly you'll see it added on to your bill on like 10%. But if it's not added on, then it's customary to add 10%. And also like hotel staff, guides, they're used to receiving tips. The only thing is taxis and tuktuks. We didn't use too many of them, but they kind of work on the roundup system. So in general, expect a tip. The currency in Sri Lanka is the Sri Lankan rupee, and as you can see, it is a gorgeous currency. When we visited the country in April 2023, $1 totaled about 325 rupees. But as we mentioned in some of our travel videos, Sri Lanka did just go through a pretty severe economic crisis, so the currency was very, very volatile, so do check the exchange rate before visiting here. Also, it is very much a cash-based economy, so you will have to take out money or have rupees on hand. Thankfully, there are a ton of ATMs in the country. The only thing about the ATMs is that they have withdrawal limits of about 40,000 typically, so that's like $120. So it's not that easy to get cash. Another thing to note, they do also have some black market and official exchange houses. So that's also a good way to get currency and exchange euros and dollars and British pounds, but the rates are so-so. So we do recommend going to an ATM. We have this very trusty international Charles Schwab debit card. There's no international fees, so if you can get this one, we totally recommend it. And my very final point is that credit card is not super widely accepted. They do accept it at gas stations, like chain supermarkets and those kind of things, but for the most part, it is very much cash only. A lot of information. Thanks for listening.
First, accommodation. So we mostly stayed in guest houses and we spent $793 for 29 nights and we averaged $27, which was our lowest average ever. It was so
that's
cheap.
pretty amazing. We definitely recommend staying in guest houses. The quality is awesome. They're super comfortable. The breakfasts are to die for, and there's so much food that they serve.
Yeah, exactly. On top of them being affordable and that you're supporting locals, they serve breakfast and it's included. So you have this massive meal that counts as breakfast and lunch included. And again, we're gonna link every place that we stayed at because they were all awesome. So it's all in the description.
And just to say this too, there aren't a ton of Airbnb options. So like guest house is just the way to go.
Yeah, and keep in mind that you have to pay cash in most of them and in local currency. Some of them accept dollars, but ask in advance, but cash only pretty much the whole time. For transportation, we only moved around using our tuktuk Alia, or beautiful Alia that took us everywhere. So we didn't spend much in any other forms of transportation. Maybe I think $10 or $15 in the occasional taxi here and there, but that's it. So we paid a total of $490, and that includes the cost of both of our licenses, which are $40 each, I think. And we spent $2,000. Oh, that's not $2,000. We spent $92 in gas and we drove 2,000 kilometers, which is crazy. That's nothing.
Yeah, it's nothing. Gas is super cheap there, but also the tuk-tuk doesn't use much gas.
Yeah.
So those things are good.
Yeah.
Another thing, just quickly, Ubers are available in some cities and are super cheap. You can get Uber, regular Uber, or Uber tuk-tuk.
Yeah, or
which we talked about earlier. Yeah. And in general, tuk-tuks, I think the going rate is 100 rupees per kilometer, which is 35 cents.
For food, we basically only ate out the entire time. We only bought stuff at grocery stores like water, coffee, toothpaste. So most of our expenses for food were eating out. And we spent $700 eating out and $47 in grocery stores. Again, this was for 30 days. Also, this can be a lot cheaper, right? Because most of the time we ended up eating at our guest houses, so dinner was not included, so you had to pay for it. And it was way more expensive than just eating at a local restaurant, but for us, it was still affordable and it was also a way to support them, and it was also convenient because we didn't want to be driving the tuk-tuk at night. So you can just know that you can cut down this amount at least by 20 or 30%.
If not more, yeah.
If not more.
Local places are so affordable.
Yeah, so just keep that in mind. You don't have to spend that much. And for activities, we spent a total of $230, and this includes our amazing elephant safari and what was the other thing that was
the Ayurvedic spa.
Oh, the spa.
Which still wasn't spa spa standards.
Yeah, it was not.
It
was not. Just little entrance fees to religious sites, but nothing is crazy expensive.
No, national parks for foreigners, I think it does cost
it's $40 per person. That's
I think the most
expensive thing. And that's just the fee. That doesn't include the cost of the safari. In our case, where we stayed at, it included the safari, which I think was awesome. But yeah, some of those fees can be a little bit pricey, and also the seguirilla, that was also, I think, $30 or $40 the entrance. So that's part of the reason why we didn't do it. We think it's very important to include the things that we didn't like about a certain country, because no country is perfect, and I think knowing this stuff in advance can help you prepare right before visiting. So we really had to think about Sri Lanka, honestly, because we loved it. We fell in love with this country, but when we were talking about it, two things came to mind, and one of them was really sad, and we're actually not going to show you the footage, but there's a lot of street dogs in terrible shape. They're suffering. It's so sad. And for us that we love animals, and it was hard, especially in the places that are not super touristy. And because we drove the tuk-tuk, we were on the road the whole time, so we saw all kinds of things, and it was really sad. Yeah. And the other thing,
those damn buses.
That was kind of silly to include, but it really,
they drive complete psychos. They really do.
Yeah.
And if it's just you and that little tuk-tuk, then you just develop a very intense hatred towards them. So if you've seen our travel guide videos before, then you know that we like to learn some of the local words, or words in local language, so we can kind of connect with the people, and we just see it as a sign of respect.
Yeah.
We really struggled here in Sri Lanka to learn the language. Two reasons. One reason is that English is kind of a default language, and you
Yeah.
can get very far with English. Like even people that don't speak English, they can understand a lot.
Yeah.
So that's one reason. And the other reason is that the local languages are so difficult. So there are two languages. There's Sinhala, which is the majority language. Maybe like 65% of people speak Sinhala. But then in the north, they speak Tamil. We didn't learn any Tamil.
No.
We learned...
We have to admit, we only learned 2 words, and one of them doesn't even make sense that you say it to locals. But we're gonna share it. Yeah, okay, so the first word is ayubovan, which is welcome. So at the beginning we thought it meant hello, and then we were just like saying ayubovan to locals, and they're like, I mean, welcome
You go to Google
my
Translate
country.
and you put hello, it'll say ayubovan. But what I'm not saying, it makes no
It
sense.
makes no sense.
Yeah.
They will tell it to you, and then you know what that means. And the second word is thank you, which is tutti. Easy one to remember.
That's a good one.
Yeah, that's a good
Say
one.
stuti.
So you can say stuti, and obviously you're gonna get a big smile out of everyone's face. But that is it. We're so sorry that we don't have a language lesson this
Yeah.
time.
Just like hearing the language, like Sinhala. when
We
you-
asked a lot, and then we tried to write it down, and they were like, "Oh," and I was like, "Okay, I forgot that instantly." And if you write it, it won't read the same. So
It's very hard.
It's very hard, but maybe you can do a better job than us, hopefully. Technically, our goodbye to Sri Lanka already happened. We left that beautiful country 2 weeks ago, I think, a little bit over 2 weeks ago, and wow, we have to say thank you to the people of Sri Lanka because you guys made our trip so special and memorable. This has been the biggest adventure, the craziest thing that we've ever done. I don't know how anything is going to be better.
In a way, we wouldn't have survived it if it wasn't for the people. Like we got so many like pushes in our tuk-tuk to like help us like restart it and keep us going. Like literally.
Yeah, and all the smiles and everyone at the guest houses and all the waves when we were in the tuk-tuk and little roadside snacks. Like we have so many stories, but all in all, this trip would have been nothing if it wouldn't have been for the Sri Lankan people. Like you guys are amazing. Thank you so much for welcoming us, for making our trip so special. We'll never forget this.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Never
And if
forget
you're
this
thinking
time.
about coming to Sri Lanka, you definitely should. And one great thing about visiting Sri Lanka is that for a country that's kind of going through a crisis, it's a very easy place to kind of support directly like families and small businesses because you have like the guest houses and a lot of
restaurants.
locally owned restaurants.
Yeah. So don't hesitate to visit
a
Sri
difference.
Lanka. You can really make a difference, and not only the country needs you, but you need it. You need Sri Lanka in your life. You need
And you need a tuk-tuk.
and you need
in your
a
life.
tuk-tuk. You need a tuk-tuk in
It
your
is
life.
life-changing.
Yes.
In many ways.
Yeah. Please watch the travel series so you know what we're talking about. And I really don't mean to plug it, but I'm just so proud of the work that we did and how we grew over the past month when we were there. And yeah, it was amazing. So Sri Lanka, thank you so much. We love you. We can't wait to be back and see more. We always say this, but
Stuti.
yeah, Stuti, Sri Lanka. We love you so much.